The most famous train in Japan is the Shinkansen, which has been running on its own rail network to the country's most important cities since 1964. This is a journey on the high-speed train from Tokyo to Hiroshima. Japan is the birthplace of high-speed trains, and our adventure on the Shinkansen begins in the imperial city of Tokyo. An exotic world in which the ancient traditions of the samurai merge with the progress of the 21st century. Where the radiant Tokyo Tower rises at the edge of the Roppongi district. And the Sensoji Temple, the oldest in the city, captivates all those who see it. The silence of religious contemplation is not possible here. The 634-metre-high Tokyo Skytree has become the new landmark of the city. And a water bus journey on the Sumida River from the Asakusa to the Hinode Pier is a must. From here, Tokyo Bay is crossed, with bridges and skyscrapers that indicate how much the city has grown. The artificial Odaiba Island, designed by Shogun Yoshinobu as a strategic defense, is now an entertainment district. Tokyo is one of the main centers of world economy and finance. This once poor fishing village has developed into one of the largest metropolises in the world. Tokyo Station was built in 1914 as a red brick building in Renaissance style. It is from here that the Shinkansen embarks. In each station, it has its own well-defined area and is only accessible with a special ticket. The train is extremely futuristic, and the passengers are seated at windows whose shape is reminiscent of aircraft windows. The railway lines are built in such a way that the enormous speeds which were attained cannot be felt. Punctually and to the second, the Shinkansen reaches the next station, Odaiba. From here, the Hakone-Tozan Railway leads inland to Hakone-Yumoto, and then continues by way of a zigzag train to Gora, and from there by cable car up to Sunzan, a health resort. A ropeway leads to the summit of a volcano whose smoking craters lie threateningly in the depths below us. A short visit to a temple and museum, and then down again via gondola. At Lake Ashi, pirate ships transport tourists in all weathers back to Hakone. It's like being in a time capsule. The Sekisho Fort was once a checkpoint in the shogunate and is located on the shore next to a cedar forest through which the Tokaido Trail once led. Next, there's a red torii and a cemetery, and a final view of the famous Hakone Shrine. The Shinkansen stops precisely at markings assigned in advance to each of the passengers. The train travels up to around 320 kilometers an hour. Today, this sensational project of railway history technology is now already regarded as quite normal, at least in Japan. Modern railways also include modern stations. Nagoya, Japan's fourth largest city, developed around the fortress of the Imagawa and Oda families. In 1612, Tokugawa Ieyasu had the great castle built for his son Yoshinao and appointed him ruler of the province of Owari. The clan finally ruled here until 1868. And power was eventually ceded to the central government in Tokyo. Nagoya is also home to the most important Shinto shrine, the Atsuta shrine, in which one of the 3 imperial insignia is kept. Again, the train stops at exactly the point where the safety door on the platform opens. The passengers disembark in a disciplined manner. The Shinkansen races on. On October 1st, 1964, the first railway thunderbolt went into operation. It was a sensation. Now, Japan's largest cities were readily accessible. The cabin door opens and passengers follow their labelled routes. We arrive in Kyoto, cradle of Japanese culture, an ancient imperial city with 1,200 years of history. This is the location of the main temple of the Jodo Shinshu school and the Nijo-jo palace of Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu. On the northern edge of the city is the Kinkakuji Temple, the Golden Pavilion. As well as the Kamigamo Shrine, which is one of the most influential and powerful shrines during the Heian era. The Philosopher's Way leads to the Kinkakuji Temple. The Gion district features various traditional ceremonies. The tea ceremony, with koto and gagaku music and dance, as once performed in the Japanese royal court. At the station, typical Japanese courtesy is demonstrated by the train staff as they greet passengers. The first connection, measuring around 515 kilometers between Japan's capital city and Osaka, was inaugurated in time for Tokyo's Olympic Games. Japan's third largest city has also had to be quickly and easily accessible by the high-speed train. Osaka is located in the estuary delta of the Yodo River in western central Honshu. The Venice of the East was Japan's first large commercial centre long before Tokyo was built. In the 16th century, Hideyoshi Toyotomi ended the long civil war. He reunited Japan and built this castle as a sign of his power. Today, from the castle, there's a good view of the expanding metropolis. Exhibitions bring history to life, with struggles and victories that made unification possible. Osaka owed its early success as a centre of trade to shipping and waterways. Half an hour by train is the port city of Kobe, whose Chinatown highlights its prominent sea trade with China. At that time, in the 17th century, Japan's isolation under the Tokugawa shogunate led to the collapse of international trade. But Kobe was also the first port to allow foreigners to again enter the country. In 1995, an earthquake devastated the city and the harbour area was completely destroyed. More than 6,400 people lost their lives. Today, both city and port have been rebuilt, and trade with the whole world is going from strength to strength. The Kobe Tower was built in the harbour. An elevator leads to an observation platform of this, the new landmark of the city. From here there's a splendid view of the entire harbour area and the overwhelming skyline. Another excursion on the Koya Express from Osaka leads to the remote high plateau of Koya-san on the Kii Peninsula. A diagonal railway leads up the fascinating mystical mountain. Daiman, the Great Gate, once served as the entrance to Mount Koya, guarded by the guardian deities. The Monastery Hill is one of the most important and oldest places of pilgrimage in Japan. Kobo Daishi, the founder of the Shingon school, built the first monastery here in 816 AD, which was subsequently followed by 124 temple buildings. The Okuno-in cemetery is considered to be the holiest area in Koya-san. It is a mysterious world with a truly spiritual atmosphere. Here ends the mystical realm of enlightenment. At Osaka Station, the Shinkansen arrives right on time. The usual courtesies are observed and the high-speed journey starts again. The island is almost entirely populated. More than 10 billion passengers have used the train. We arrive at the next stop. With a samurai atmosphere inside and modern traffic outside. Himeji-jo, the mighty castle of the White Heron, sits enthroned on a steep cliff of the homonymous village. Gardens hidden behind walls have always been masterpieces of garden architecture, with several elements that contribute to a sense of well-being. The Hisi Gate leads into the castle grounds. The largest and most well-preserved fortress in Japan has always been considered to be impregnable with its highly developed fortifications. It has become one of Japan's national treasures. While waiting at the small Himeji station, it's easy to experience the sensation of speed when a high-speed train passes, as not all of them stop here. As early as 1970, at the opening of the World Exhibition in Osaka, the normal 12 carriages were extended to 16. On March 15, 1972, the line to Okayama was opened. The intersection between Honshu and Shikoku. Okayama boasts a completely black castle, built in 1597. The Ukita Hidei constructed as a counterpart to Himeji. In 1687, the lord of the town commissioned construction of the Koraku-en park at the foot of the castle, which was completed in 1700. It is one of the most famous Japanese gardens in the tradition of Kobori Enshu, with bridges, watercourses, ponds, waterfalls, and tea pavilions. The park has been destroyed several times over the centuries, but has always been rebuilt true to the original with the aid of old documents. Over the centuries, the gardens developed from the holy sanctuaries of Zen Buddhism to the courtly splendour of the Edo-era. In the nearby town of Kurashiki, the historical hill and old town centre have been well preserved. For more than 1,700 years, the Achi shrine, whose entrance to the devotional hall is decorated with a caterpillar, has been located on a hill above the city. The famous merchant town from the medieval Edo period extends below the hill. The architectural heritage of the past has been generously preserved. And with its array of small canals, ancient Japan springs back to life as in bygone times. Rickshaws and small boats travel here, as in the past, when trade dominated life here. In the feudal period of ancient Japan, Kurashiki was an important trading centre and the seat of wealthy merchants. Matsui is well worth a visit. At the beginning of the 17th century, this once fishing village was transformed into a fortress town from which the powerful Matsudaira clan controlled the region. Below the castle, a hostelry was built for the emperor's visit. There's a good boat trip available on the canals around the fortress hill, a highlight of any visit to the castle. In an old samurai residence, ceremonies such as Japanese shooting are performed in ancient costumes. The ancient townscape has been well preserved along the canal road, and a number of samurai buildings bring history back to life. The Geshoji temple is quite remote and rather hidden. It is the mausoleum of the Matsuyama clan, in which all 9 feudal lords are buried. From Okayama, we commence the last leg of this extraordinary train journey. Three years after Okayama, the route to Hakone was inaugurated on the 10th of March 1975. Leaking water in the tunnels delayed construction work. The railway is generally the most widely used public transport system in Japan. The reasons for this are its punctuality, speed, and comfort. The final station of our journey is located centrally. The Japanese city of Hiroshima was once the mighty fortress town of Mori Terumoto, and also the headquarters of the imperial family. Located on the delta of the Otagawa River, the city has a long history. It was once the center of power of Western Japan. Since the beginning of the Edo-era, Japan's castles changed from military bases to luxurious residential complexes of the royal families, and included beautifully laid out ornate gardens. However, this was also the scene of a tragic event. On August 6, 1945, at 8:15 in the morning, the first American nuclear bomb in history was dropped on Hiroshima. An apocalyptic moment that brought indescribable suffering. Peace Park is dedicated to the dropping of the bomb and serves as a reminder to the whole world of this horrific event. A sign of both deep grief and strength. Just outside the gates of Hiroshima is one of 3 famous Japanese landscapes. The holy shrine island of Miyajima. From the ferry port, a path leads to the shrines, and a red Shinto torii welcomes visitors. In 593 AD, the Itsukushima shrine was built here, whose buildings were erected using pile construction above the water level of the bay. The temple halls appear to float on the water at high tide, creating an extraordinary scene. The Tokikoji Way leads up to the Daishoin temple complex. Emperor Toba ordained that this was a place where people could pray for Japan's peace and security. A place of faith, Buddhist sculpture, and tranquility. Here, the dream of every railway enthusiast becomes reality. Comfort, punctuality, speed, and above all, safety. The whole of Japan is proud of this railway. Today, the Shinkansen is legendary. a train that arrived from the future.